Hey everyone, this is Cardfight, finally bringing you another standard match. Today we have myself on the left playing my Granfia deck, and don't worry, I do know a lot of people have been asking for the deck profile, and I think I will finally be getting it out, and maybe an extra deck profile from another one of my friends, hopefully. But anyways, on the right we do actually have a deck I haven't featured before, and a deck that I actually do, or I would say I'm rather fond of myself, which is Mediell. Now I don't like the aesthetic design of Mediell. I think it's kind of lame, and I also don't like little girls in Vanguard. But the play style of Mediell is very interesting. It honestly, though, the way I put it when Mediell first came out is this is kind of what Great Nature should have been in V series, where you are relying on this lottery mechanic, but Mediell actually uses the lottery mechanic in a way that is somewhat viable to say, because the reason I would say that is just because the lottery mechanic itself involves a lot of milling, and I always found it kind of odd that you're just like milling yourself out and you're not really getting any value out of it, and unless you're playing something like Barcode Zebra, which is like literally one card. So that's honestly something that always baffled me about Great Nature V, that of many things in all honesty. But anyways, getting into the match, I should probably do that. We are just riding up, and then we are going into the grade 2 Granfia turn, which is where you do actually do quite a bit. Unfortunately, not getting the ideal setup in this situation, because what we would have preferred to have is a orange in order to revive, because we would have gotten 2 tokens as opposed to this dandelion fella who is the promo, only being able to be reborning or generating 1 plant token at the start of the battle phase. But it is going to be getting an extra 5k. I believe that is the grade 1, so theoretically that other column should have been able to hit, because it is an 18k since the dandelion guy was reborn from the Elena. It does get an extra 5k, but I suppose I just forgot about it, but it's not really going to matter too much in the long run. So Mediell riding into the grade 2 is actually going to be proccing that grade 1 skill, which is also a very interesting skill. I wish that there, well, let me explain the skill first. So basically it's going to allow you to reborn a grade 1 or less from your drop zone, and then you reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a trigger unit, the card gets rested, but if it's a normal unit, it actually stays standing. And that card is also another promo that works with both Mediell as well as what's her name, Hazaret, where it basically, when it's placed, during the turn that it's placed, it turns all units that are revealed from your deck into normal units. So if you had revealed a trigger unit there, instead of actually resting it, since it would be treated as a normal unit, it would stay on top, and then that promo card would not actually rest itself, which I think is a really interesting interaction that I never thought about before with this promo. I'm not a huge fan of this promo, but it does do some things. I think that there's like a 13k booster, which is just a little bit better, that we're going to be getting in the future. We do see me going a 1 to pass, because at this point I do actually know what is on top, I believe, because we decided to call the grade 2 there. And the grade 2 skill is that you check the top card of your deck, and then you can choose to put it into the soul. And if you put it into the soul, you do actually get to check the top card again, which is a very interesting play. I believe that the card on top was a Beware of Overeating, and I guess we just wanted to get that into our hand. But in my experience from playing Mediell, you really do need the soul generation. So even when I call that card, even if you do see a trigger unit, unless it's OT, most of the time I will just put it into soul and actually just check the top card again, which is still pretty decent. But anyways, going back to my turn, I am going to be riding into that grade 3, soul blasting the 1 to get my Noble Rose token, and then calling out that grade 3, which is a counterblast soul blast 1, to mill the top 3 cards of your deck and either call a grade 2 or less, or add a Persona Ride from your drop zone into your hand. And we are seeing me go for a very awkward play here. My hand is actually very awkward, where I'm actually going to be calling the grade 1 from the ride line and actually just using it as a basic booster, swinging the 13 in there. Probably should have boosted. Something that I've learned is that you always just want to boost for the first attack, because the next attack is going to be swinging for a very big number. So honestly, you would want to get as big numbers as possible. So even though you are going to be technically getting bigger by not boosting during the second swing, it doesn't really matter because that second swing is already super big. So we are going to be using the Granfia skill here. Almost said soul blasting, shooting out those 3 plant gauges. I don't know how to describe it, giving plus 15k and restanding that grade 3. And then we are going to be using the Creed Assault, which is a tech that I very much really do like in Granfia. I think it's something that the deck really needs right now because it's just a really strong attacker, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to be able to proc it anyway. So it's not too much of a hassle, as we are going to be swinging a 36 here coming at the Vanguard. So it would have been 28, so it would have been able to hit anyway. So the extra 8k boost doesn't really matter that much, but it is going to be hit with a 20k guard for 40. So one thing I should note is that we did see the grade 2 for Mediell, the triple rare, go into the damage zone, which is very unfortunate for the Mediell player because that is a card that you want in the drop zone. The one thing I will say about Mediell is it's very piece reliant, but the pieces that it needs don't necessarily need to be all in the Wait, did we just do grade 2 Mediell skill a little bit incorrectly there? I'm just noticing that now. You actually do send... the grade 2 skill is that you send 2... You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you send 2 to the drop zone, and you keep 1 on top. But I think we might have actually put 2 cards on top by mistake. But we are using the Mediell skill, which is actually going to be a Counterblast 2, which is pretty unfortunate that we have to do that because there is that other grade 1 that we did see go into the drop zone where you can actually Soul Blast 2 and then reduce the cost by 1 Counterblast. Basically, you change the cost for the skill into Counterblast 1. And then I believe we revealed a normal unit there, so that grade 2 is going to be coming back out using its skill. And that grade 2 is also going to be getting a critical from Mediell skill and an extra 5k from the promo skill, which I think it's called like Are Not Great to Be Attending or something. But it gives, whenever something is placed in front of it, it gives it an extra 5k. So a pretty good card, but unfortunately it is a 6k booster. So not really making the greatest numbers there. That is a 21k column. That doesn't really do very much. So it looks like we are just swinging with the Vanguard first. So 13k, probably just going to be taking this, jerking into Persona Ride, and finally that grade 2 that we needed to see this turn, but unfortunately we weren't really able to. So swinging the other rear guard. So this is for 2 damage, but it is only 21, meaning that this is going to be a very easy guard, just a 15k shield. Would have been nice to have if we had had a draw trigger, but you know, it is what it is. Let's just keep going with it. So we are starting off with a Persona Ride. So this is going to be a very, very big number turn, as we are going to be seeing. However, we don't really have necessary things to make plant tokens. As you can see, we have 0 plant gauge. But fortunately for us, we did actually drive check 2 mushrooms during that last turn. So we are going to be putting it into the soul to generate 2 more plant gauges, as well as giving a 5k to that plant girl, meaning that she's going to be swinging for 28, which is a very nice magic number. So looking to be even better, or I don't even know. This is looking to be a very, very good turn. So I think what we're thinking about right here now is, do we want to commit another mushroom in order to basically get an even stronger swing, or do we want to be conservative with our hand and keep it for later, which is definitely something you have to think about when you're playing Granfia. The deck does not make very much advantage at all, and you end up calling a lot of cards from hand, which basically depletes your entire hand and leaves you very with very few resources to guard with. But you do have to plan out how you're going to be going so that you can I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. You have to make sure that you play the deck smart so that you're not using all of your resources, but that you're using enough to do your plays. I guess that's the best way to put it. When I do the deck profile, I'll probably go a little bit more into depth, but anyways, just know that being a little conservative is probably a good play here. But we are actually going to be seeing a critical trigger here, which is definitely not something you want to see, especially if you are on 3 damage. So not only do we have are we at 5 damage, but we do actually have two very massive swings coming out at you. Let's see, that Creed Assault is at 20k base, 30 with the Persona Ride, 40 with the trigger, plus the boost. That is a 48 swing. And then the Plant Girl, which I'm sorry, I don't know her name, is already at 28. She's getting another 15k from the restand, so that is 38, 43. So these are 43 and 48k swings, which you didn't get a defensive from either of those two swings, so that is basically a ton of your hand. Each of those is either a PG or at least a 2-card guard. Honestly, just like a 3-card guard, because 43 is also another magic number where you do have to commit either front triggers or two triggers in order to guard it, as well as another 5k. So it's 43 is going to be swinging first. Obviously, you want to swing smaller number first, but honestly, this is not looking good for the Mediell player. We do have quite a few cards in hand, which is one of the good things about Mediell. Since you are actually reborning a lot of things from your drop zone, you don't really need to commit as much from hand. Although, well, one problem I do have with Mediell is that you only have one way of reviving something per turn, which is what I think is the biggest weakness of the deck. I wish there were a lot more revival for Mediell, because you are milling a lot of things, and being able to get your pieces back would really help the deck out a lot. Not just being able to call back your things that will, what's the way of saying it? Your pieces that generate you these resources, but also just being able to have a big board, which is something that Mediell actually needs, because you do need that grade 1 to help you out, and you do also need a attackers and then just boosters. But we are actually see that I completely forgot that this happened. But we are actually getting saved by a 6 damage heal there. So we are going to be doing something, actually starting off with a Persona Ride of our own. So going into this turn, we are pretty well set up. The only thing we're missing is that grade 1 to reduce the cost. But of course, we do have the spare Counterblast. And I will say it is pretty nice that nothing in Mediell really needs resources outside, or Counterblast, I should say, outside of Mediell herself. Going to be reborning that girl, who is the best reborn target for Mediell, obviously putting it in the other column with the Are Not Great to be attending, so that she gets an extra 5k. So this one is actually going to be a very threatening swing, because it gets 5k when it attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. So it is already swinging at 20 base with the Persona Ride. That is a 30 base for 2 damage. So it looks like we are going to be calling the other grade 2. That I will say is another problem with Mediell. We don't really have any great attackers. I mean, it is nice that you're able to scry pretty well, and we do see a Beware of Overeating, so even more scry for the deck, which I find to be probably the most fun part of Mediell, just being able to like check the top card of your deck and just determine if it's a trigger or if it's a normal unit, and then decide what to do from there. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of playing Isabel back in the day, where you basically, well, with the new Isabel, you just like check the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you decide, oh, what am I going to do with it? What skills am I going to use? But a little bit different, I would say. Anyways, we are going to be guarding obviously the 2 damage. Just going to be taking the Vanguard swing, actually hitting into another heal trigger, so healing down to 4. Although, well, I will say that is kind of impactful, because even though my swings are going to be very, very big, as long as if you take it, it makes it that much easier to guard, because you can just take one of the really big swings, and then that's conserving a lot of cards in hand. Anyways, I am actually going to be hitting a nice defensive trigger, which is going to basically shut down Mediell for this turn. Even though we do have 2 more swings, using the skill of the grade 2, we do actually get a Soul Blast 1 and restand it after the Vanguard attacks. So going to be swinging with the Beware of Overeating, choosing to put that card on the bottom of the deck for a easy 28. So thanks to the defensive, it is a lot easier to guard it, but we are actually going to opt to take it, which is actually going to be a pretty good benefit for me, because I am going to be getting another defensive trigger, which just makes this turn just that more doomed for Mediell, because even though this is swinging for a 36k at the Vanguard, I am now at 33, so that is actually just going to be a 5k guard. Oh, I believe it's at, oh yes, we did get a trigger, so it is at 46. My mistake. I almost forgot about that heal trigger, but even then, it is still just a 15k guard, whereas if I had not gotten those defensive, it would have been a 25 or 35k guard. Probably just calling out for a PG here, but since I did get those 2 defensives, I might as well just do a 15k, but it looks like I don't have one, so I'm just going to opt to PG it anyway, which I probably would have done even if I hadn't got those 2 defensive triggers. So going into this turn, not going to be Persona riding, which I will say is probably not that necessary in Granfia. I'll talk more about it in my deck profile, but I don't really think Persona Ride is that good for Granfia because you're already hitting very big numbers, and an extra 10k doesn't matter that much, especially if they're just going to be PGing your attacks anyway. But looks like we are going to be calling out the orange man that we saw on our drive check last turn, as well as calling out a Diantha and making one of my favorite columns here, the Diantha plus the Creed Assault, which is a very nice number because all by itself it is hitting a 33 thanks to Diantha's skill, which is almost always going to be live because you do have the Noble Rose token in the back. And do note that Diantha does have an errata where she does need to actually have 2 or more grade 1 or less rear guards in the back row and not just in general to get that 5k. But since she is going to be in the back row and we obviously have that Noble Rose token along with the promo, it is not going to be a problem to proc that skill. And we are seeing me here actually doing what I think you should, which is boosting with the grade 1 because your next swing is going to be even bigger. It doesn't really matter if the boost, you want this one to be threatening, swinging for a clean 23, which is a decent number but not a huge number. But we are swinging, let's see, that's plus 5 gauge, so that's plus 30, so it's a 43k swing. This is what I'm saying. You really don't need Persona Ride to hit these really big numbers. Hitting into a heal trigger there, actually choosing what we want to heal, I guess. Giving the 10k power to one of my units. Probably the Creed Assault because Creed Assault is actually smaller at this point, and then hitting into a draw trigger. Also, another kind of tricky decision because if I give the power to Creed Assault, then it becomes the bigger column. But if I give it to the orange, it becomes the bigger column. But anyways, in any case, these are both really, really big swings. And it is going to be very difficult to guard, especially not hitting a defensive off of that damage check. Giving the orange, I believe we gave it an extra 25k, so it was at 15k base. So 25 plus 15 is equal to 40, meaning that this is going to be a 40k swing, which is at least 2 card guard, 2 15ks. So once again, these are just massive, massive swings. And then that Creed Assault with 2 triggers is now hitting for 53, which is another massively big number. So once again, like I said, an extra 10k on top of this doesn't matter that much. I mean, it would have made a better number for the orange. He would have been swinging for 50, which would have been a better number than 40, just because that commits another 15k or probably at least another 2 5ks. But, you know. So it looks like we're deciding that we really cannot guard those last 2 swings, and I don't blame you. Those are really, really big swings, but that is going to be the end of the match. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.